You're welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to be looking at another source of laws applicable in Uganda, which is legislation. So legislation refers to the laws that are made by Parliament and other authorities vested with such powers by law. Laws made by Parliament and other authorities that have the power. So we have two key forms of legislation, and that is the Acts of Parliament and then the delegated legislation. So the Acts of Parliament, as you hear it, these are laws that are made by the Parliament. Then the delegated legislation, delegated is like a signing. So delegated legislation refers to the laws that are made by someone or any other body which is not a Parliament. So these ones are made by a person or a body that is not the Parliament, and these ones are made by the Parliament. So we are going to look at each of them in details, and the first one that we are going to look at is Acts of Parliament, also known as primary legislation, also known as direct legislation. So these are the supreme source of legislation, like they are the supreme source of legislation over and above the common law and equity. Acts are written laws enacted by Parliament as primary legislation, and in order for them to come up with an act, it arises from a bill. A bill is a draft of a proposed act, a draft of what they have proposed. It's a draft of a proposed act of Parliament which has been formally tabled before Parliament for consideration, like they take it to Parliament to be discussed before it being passed as an act. It is a bill, a draft of a proposed act of Parliament which has been formally tabled before Parliament for consideration. So let's look at the process of enacting an act of Parliament, or the process of making an act of Parliament. So the first step is that the ministry concerned approaches the Cabinet through a Cabinet memorandum with a proposal for the Cabinet to approve the principles for drafting the bill. So the ministry makes the proposal. A government ministry can be like the Ministry of Health or Education. They can have an idea for a new law, and they write a detailed document, and that document is called the Cabinet memorandum, explaining why the law is needed and what it should cover. The Cabinet then considers the proposal as contained in the Cabinet memorandum of the ministry concerned and approves the principles on the basis of which the bill is drafted. So the Cabinet reviews the proposal. It looks at the document and discusses whether they agree with the general ideas and the goals of the proposed law. So the Cabinet is a group of government officials. It is usually composed of ministers, and in Uganda it is composed of ministers, and the one who is at the top is the president, then the vice president, the prime minister, and then the rest of the ministers. So that's what makes a cabinet. So after the Cabinet reviewing the proposal, they approve drafting the bill. If the Cabinet agrees with the proposal, they approve the basic principles, which are the key points that will guide the creation of the law known as the bill. So the bill then goes through the processes of Parliament necessary for passing the bill. When the Cabinet has agreed and approved, the bill goes through the processes necessary for passing the bill. according to rule number 14 of the parliamentary rules, it provides that every bill shall be read 3 times prior to it being passed. So it has to be read 3 times, and that's what we call the first reading, the second reading, and then the third reading.